Hi, I want to welcome everyone to Women's Quarterly Podcast, Unseen to Unstoppable. I'm super excited about this podcast to be sharing stories of triumph. We've been waiting so long to be able to start this, to allow women who have felt unseen and unheard to be able to tell what they're doing and how they're helping other people. And my name is Ilene Carroll. I'll be the host of this podcast. And today we have our guest is Shawnti Refuge.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, Shawnti, I want to, and am I pronouncing your name right? I forgot to ask you, is it Shawnti?
Shawnti.
Shawnti, okay. What I want to do is I want to introduce you to our listeners by just kind of reading your bio and brief, and so we can kind of go through the steps that led you to the business that you started. So I'm just going to read it here. It says, Shawnti Refuge is a master certified mental health coach, keynote speaker, and author, specializing in guided journaling for mental wellness. After overcoming severe depression and anxiety through journaling, Shawnti developed her own program, empowering individuals to heal and thrive without medication. She is the creator of Shawnti Refuge Journals, which carries a series of guided journals designed to help others release past traumas. With her relatable, no-nonsense approach, Shawnti's mission is to inspire personal growth and self-awareness. She is the founder of Staying Stuck Ain't Cute Coaching and a passionate advocate for mental health in both business and community settings. So welcome. You're so honored.
Thank you for having me.
And so what I want to do is I kind of want to break down, what you've been through. And what I'd like to start with is, tell us a little bit about your journey. So what was the turning point in your life that led you to create your guided journaling program?
I always have to say, this was not my intention. I never intended on being in business. I never we don't intend on a lot of things, but it happened. And how it happened is that I woke up one Sunday morning, 2018. I don't know what it was, how it was, but I woke up and I wasn't feeling like myself. And initially I thought, okay, well, maybe I'm about to start my cycle. And, you know how we act before that happens. But my cycle never came. So I was like, okay, and I was starting to experience these different emotions and I could not control them. I was angry. I was popping off. I was cussing people out. I was sad. I was crying. I was withdrawn. I was doing all of this and it was in cycles and it was like a roller coaster ride that I could not get off of. I said, okay, this isn't a funk. And it took me about a month to realize that I wasn't in a funk, like something was wrong. And so I went ahead and I said, okay, I need some help. I don't know where to go. So I went to my primary care doctor. And I'm saying, okay, well, maybe I'm going through menopause or something. She'll tell me because even though I wasn't old enough to be going through menopause, but hey, you never know these days. I went to her and I told her what was going on. And she said, it sounds like you're depressed. So let me give you some antidepressants. And I'm like, I do not want antidepressants. But I went ahead and took them, and she said, come back in 6 weeks and let me know how it helped you. It did not help me at all, not one bit. It had no effect on me. I had gotten worse. So I was very verbally aggressive. And when I told her that it wasn't working for me, she said, I need to refer you to a psychiatrist. I'm not saying anything's wrong with you, but you might need to see one. And, me, I am from a little town in Texas, and I have never heard of a Black person going to see a psychiatrist. So I'm like, Black people don't go see psychiatrists. And she just busts out laughing at me.
Right.
Mind you, my primary care doctor is Black. So, she was just laughing at me. So, no, it's okay. Go ahead. And, I had to make a decision. Okay, Shawnti, do you want to go to jail or do you want to go see a psychiatrist? That's how bad I had gotten. And so I went ahead to go, make the appointment for the psychiatrist. I told her what was going on. And she wanted to give me stronger antidepressants. And I'm like, no, I do not want that. And, I'm not against medication for anyone. Whoever needs it, please get it. But I felt like I didn't need it. What I wanted to know was, what happened? Like, why all of a sudden out of nowhere I'm acting like this? I wanted to get to the bottom of it so that I can, fix it or know how to not do it again. And so she was like, well, you need to go see a therapist. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know no Black people that went to go see therapists. And I know that's not true, but in my mind, it was like, Black people don't go do this. That's white people stuff. That's
Right.
how I thought. So I went ahead and went to see a therapist. And it was actually my third therapist who actually helped me. My first therapist was trash. And my second therapist ghosted me on our first visit. After our first visit. Yes. Yes. I said, and mind you, each person that I had to see, I had to tell my story. So I told, my story to my primary care doctor. I told it to the psychiatrist. I told it to the first therapist. And when I realized she wasn't helping me, I had to fire her and go find another one. I found another one. I had to tell my story again. And after the first visit, she ghosted me. So income abandonment issues. I'd never had abandonment issues before. And so I went to my third therapist, and just imagine, I was full of attitude. I'm like, look, you my last option. If you can't help me, I'm going to jail. And I was just extra. And she just sat there looking at me. And after I finished talking, she said, I'm going to help you and I'm not going to leave you. I'm like, okay, whatever you say, because I didn't trust her,
Right.
But she actually did help me. Seeing her, I learned that I was diagnosed with severe anxiety and depression.
Okay.
And through talk therapy, and she introduced me to guided journaling. I had no clue what guided journaling was, but, she introduced that to me as a tool to confront my emotions and, uncover hidden patterns and work through this pain that I didn't even know I had. So a lot of things started coming up through talking to my therapist and doing guided journaling. So for those that don't know what guided journaling is you answering specific prompts. So, if you want to work on self-esteem, every prompt is going to be based on self-esteem, and you have to answer those questions. And a lot of things started coming out that I didn't even know was there. I had low self-esteem, had no clue I had low self-esteem because, I thought I was the stuff. I was popping, never had a self-esteem issue. So I thought, and I had, self-love issues. No, I didn't love myself. I thought I did. I thought I was borderline conceited. No, I was not.
Well,
Serious.
you are a very beautiful woman. So if you want to be conceited, go ahead.
See, and I didn't know that. I did not know. I'm like, wait a minute, who was this person who was walking around here thinking that she was all of that in a bag of chips? And that's what we said back in the day. Come to find out I had low self-esteem, low self-worth, no boundaries. I learned that I suffered trauma. I had no clue I suffered trauma until I started doing the guided journaling. Just stuff started coming up that I didn't even know was there. So I learned that I was a victim of child abuse. Had no clue. I thought we get whippings. That's, in our culture as a form of punishment. But, I learned that the punishment was excessive.
Severe.
It wasn't just a pat on the butt. It was
Severe.
hangers and extension cords and, things like that.
Right.
I didn't know that being a teen mom was traumatic. Had no clue. I had my first kid when I was 14. Didn't think it was traumatic back then. But now, looking back, hell yeah, it was traumatic. Imagine an 8th grader sitting, a girl sitting in 8th grade pregnant. That's traumatic.
Right.
Yeah, I just learned a lot of things about myself that either, I was just, ding dong, lights on, nobody home, basically. And, that led to me having, a lot of bad choices. I made a lot of bad choices. I was arrested when I was 16. Didn't know that was traumatic. Bad decision making, being awful in relationships because, apparently I didn't have anyone to look off of, as a model about how to be a good partner in a relationship. I was horrible. So it was just a whole bunch of stuff, but I did not know that was an issue. But guided journaling helped me to address it, acknowledge it, and, overcome it. And so after about 1.5 years of this, my therapist was like, okay, you know what you're doing now. You have the tools that you need. You don't need me. And I don't want I don't want to be a crutch for you. And I was like, oh my God, you're breaking up with me. And, I felt some kind of way about that because it was like a relationship. I'm thinking we friends. No, your therapist is not your friend. She is not here. They're not your friend. And I had to go and do this on my own, but it wasn't hard to do because I was comfortable with being open and honest and, saying, yes, I was a bad person. Yes, I made bad decisions. And, I created my own guided journals to keep me, on the path to healing. And it was working. And I started feeling better. I'm telling you, after 2 weeks of using the journaling prompts, I started feeling better. It was like a whole weight had been lifted off of my shoulders, and I could not believe it. And I kept at it and kept at it, and I started feeling better, looking better, and doing better. And it was on from there. And I was like, okay, I'm fine now. Nothing's wrong with me. And then, I heard this voice say, okay, you're fine, but what about everybody else? There's somebody else out there who feels the exact same way that you do, don't want to be on, medication. And they want to know how to heal without, relying on antidepressants or have better coping skills. Because, apparently I had bad coping skills like drinking, drugging, sexing, all the stuff that we do, as a avoidance. I stopped doing all of that. Now if I do it, it's because I want to, not because I feel like I have to.
Right.
And so I took the guided journals, the exact same prompts that I used to help me. I took them all, made different guided journals, different topics, and I published them and I started selling them. When it came to a name for the business, I'm like, I don't know, Shawnti Refuge Journals. That stuck. So that's the name of the business.
Okay. Well, that brings me to consent because one of my questions was to ask you, what guided journal is, but you touched on that. So glad because people may not know what exactly is involved with that. And I can see where that would help because, like for yourself, even when you talk about yourself, where you didn't know certain things you're experiencing were traumas, but those questions led you to that and why, but not only helping you find solutions to kind of get out of that. So that was one of my questions. I'm glad you touched on that. But now you've named your business, but then you have this coaching program called Staying Stuck Ain't Cute.
Yes.
What inspired the name and what is the core message of that?
So the name comes from a simple truth that staying in a place of pain or stagnation is not cute and it's certainly not empowering. So, my core message is that everyone has the power to break free from what holds them back, whether it's fear, past trauma, or limiting beliefs. And so my coaching helps clients reclaim their peace and purpose.
That's amazing. Do you think there's some common misconceptions about mental health journaling that you like to address?
Yes, I think a misconception is that it's a quick fix, and it absolutely is not. And journaling doesn't have to be poetic or profound because when you think of journaling, you're thinking, I'm about to write a story or, and it doesn't. Journaling is about being honest with yourself. And even if your entries are messy or mundane, and another myth is that journaling solves, like I said, it solves problems instantly. It is not. It is a process and it requires patience and consistency. So if you are not willing to commit, don't even waste your time because it's not going to work for you.
That's very true, which leads me to a person being self-aware. And I know you mentioned that as far as in your bio that you help people with that. So, what would you say, how could your program help build that awareness so people can actually see themselves? How does your program help build that?
Well, self-awareness is the foundation of healing, and it allows you to be able to identify triggers, understand your emotions, and make intentional choices. So, my program uses journaling as a tool, and that's, non-negotiable. You get in my program, we're journaling. So, and it's used as a tool to cultivate self-awareness. And, it helps the client to reflect deeply and uncover patterns that they can work to change. So basically, I'm taking you and ripping your Band-Aid off, and we're gonna work on it. You've been pacifying yourself, covering it up. No, I'm gonna rip it off, and we're gonna do the work.
That Band-Aid's gonna hurt when you rip it off,
especially if it's old and got hair under it and all that stuff.
That's right.
And that's me. I'm ripping your Band-Aid off.
My goodness. And so now you've been this advocate for mental health within business and the community. Do you see any challenges within these environments? And if so, how are you addressing them?
Absolutely. There is a big stigma around mental health. Hell, I just said one that Black people don't do, therapy or psychiatry, and they do. And that keeps us from going to seek help. And there's a pressure to prioritize productivity over our well-being, especially when we're working women. We're working for others, and it's, you have a quota to meet, and, unrealistic stuff, and our well-being comes first. And so I address these by creating spaces where people feel safe discussing mental health, and by teaching practical journaling tools that integrate self-care into their daily routines.
So I want to go back to that because the part about how Black people don't go to you may know this as a reader of Women's Quarterly. The mission of the magazine was a memory of my sister who suffered from mental health her entire adult life. And it was because we came up in a family where, that just wasn't talked about, and you brushed it under the rug.
Absolutely.
Nothing was wrong with you.
Absolutely.
And people are hurting. They need help. And then it's, like you said, it's us as women too. I mean, there's that expectation to, there's nothing wrong with you. And you could be sick, but it just seems like, and I'm not taking it personally. I try not to, but it's like you could be sick or whatever going on with you, but people still have this expectation for you to still go. It's like their minds don't even switch that you've got something going on. I remember when I had knee surgery, same thing. I mean, I was still expected to do those things, that was bothering me. It took a long time for my knee to heal because I still had to come out of the house and do this, and everything. And so I'm glad that you're tackling this because it's true. I mean, it's, people of all colors need therapy and they go to therapy, but it is prevalent within the Black culture where we sort of dismiss that, So, yeah. So as someone who has transformed, your own pain into purpose, what message would you share with other women who, maybe in a situation like you are or you were in, feeling unseen or stuck in their journey?
Well, something that I say this with my whole heart, you are more than your circumstances. And even when life feels overwhelming, you have the strength to rewrite your story. I don't care what your story looks like, what you did, where you came from. Just start small, be kind to yourself, and remember that it is okay to ask for help.
That is the big thing right there. Being okay to ask for help. How do we get that? How do we get there as a society? I mean, this is just a question I'm throwing out there because, I mean, it just seems like that's another thing, that it's never been okay to ask for help.
We grew up in a culture where, our moms had to, fake it to make it. And they put that on us because they thought it was true. So It's like they only knew what they knew. But now things have changed.
Right.
Open your throat chakra. You need help. Say you need help. Yes. Open it. We have voices for a reason. And it's not, I think it's not so much as being afraid to ask for help, it's who we're asking. That's a big thing. I know when I first started not feeling good, I ran straight to my mama. And we always think, yes, exactly. When we were raised, what goes on in the house stays in the house, meaning inside the family. Right. And so our family is not our support system. And that's what I had to learn. We can't go unless they are qualified. And I'm speaking for me and my family. Nobody in my family was qualified to help me with what I was going through because they were going through it. They still going through it and refusing to heal from it, but I thought that, mom, my good cousin, my good girlfriend, going to them and talking about my issues was helping me. It was not helping me because all you're doing is talking, but you're not getting a solution. And that's why I say find you a support system where you can talk to people who have gone through what you've been through, who are qualified to help you, overcome what you are trying to overcome. And it's not going to be, mom, auntie, sister, my best friend from since kindergarten. It's not going to be those people. It's going to be going to support groups, finding a coach or a mentor or a therapist. That's going to be your support system because these people have been there, done that. They are educated in the field and they can help you.
And how do we as women get to a point where we're prioritizing that? Like we're prioritizing ourselves and our mental health among the demands that our expectations and things like that, like we've talked about here. So how do we get there? How do we as women do that? What's your advice about that?
Set boundaries.
Okay.
That's number one. Set boundaries. Say no and make time for self-care, even if it's just 10 minutes a day.
Right.
Journaling takes probably 5 minutes or less. We make time for what we make time for. And I always say, if we have time to have sex, you got time to journal. If you have time, that's what I tell people. We make time for what we make time for. So self-care, self-care, journaling, 5 minutes a day, sex lasts 5-10 minutes anyway. You could have been journaling,
It was so funny. I can't.
And that's what, journaling is a way to decompress. But I'm serious, though, when you think about it.
But I mean, I love this because you're putting it out there. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I was so excited to talk with you, because that's what you portray, your brand. When I look at your posts and things like that, I mean, you just, you're to the point putting out. There's no need to sugarcoat anything anymore because people aren't getting it anyway. So, or read between the lines or whatever. So I just love that about you. I'm sitting here giggling like a schoolgirl, but I mean, it's just because it's funny. It's refreshing that somebody's just putting it out there.
And I do that because I needed that for me when I was going through it. I needed somebody to take me by the shoulders and shake me and say, look, God dog it, but instead of, oh, woo, it's going to be okay. No, the hell it's not. You got to do the work, and journaling can help you to decompress and gain clarity. I get a lot of moms in my program and they always have this excuse, well, I have kids, so.
But see, that's what I'm saying. So, that's my point. It's like, okay, you have a child. So that means what? You don't take care of yourself. What's that? Have you heard that thing about the airplane? The oxygen mask, So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess we're just wired like that for whatever reason.
Well, that's why I'm here to unwire y'all, because you have to take care of yourself first. Just like the airplane, when they tell you, breathe into the oxygen mask first before you try to help somebody else. Why do you think they say that? So you can have the strength to help somebody else. So it's okay to prioritize yourself. It all goes back to how we were raised, that, everybody else comes first and we're last. No, we're rewriting that. We come first. I come before work. I come before home. I prioritize me first. And that's what I am teaching, because it's not selfish. It is essential.
It is. And going back to you saying setting boundaries and saying no, I actually did a post about that. I can't remember. I haven't been on my Instagram for so long, but anyway, it was no is a complete sentence.
Yes. That means you don't have to explain yourself to anybody.
Exactly. Because for whatever reason, again, I don't know about you, but, in my environment, people like being in the South too, I think people expect some sort of explanation. Like
please, no is a complete sentence. No, period.
You just can't say no. They want you to say why you're saying no, as if they want to put some sort of stamp of approval on your reason for saying no.
And that's the thing. You don't need anybody's approval. None. Nobody's. No validation, no approval. Let your no be no. And if so happen your yes, you say yes, let it be yes. But no, say no. No, and period. That's the end. And if they say why, because no.
And that's the thing. And sometimes, when I did get in the conversation, I'm like, what difference does it make? It's still gonna be no.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you feel the need that you need an explanation when no, and when somebody, I don't even know who it was. In fact, I think somebody I knew went to therapy. Somebody like us, women trying to, do everything and not take care of yourself. And that was one of the first things that her therapist told her, that no is a complete sentence.
It is. It absolutely is.
And I thought it was amazing. So I posted on social media and elaborated. I don't know how people felt about that. They probably thought I was being rude or whatever. But I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, it's, and again, I feel like some of it's location too. I mean, when I was going to work in New York, Northerners, I think that they're more direct.
Yes.
And I love that. Being here in the South is like, you got to explain yourself.
Nope, they're done.
So, but anyway, so I'm excited for you with your business. I see it thriving. And so if we could talk about like, what's next for you? You got upcoming projects, books. Yeah. What's going on?
Well, I actually have already released my book. It's called Quiet is Kept, and it's about my journey, everything I went through, everything I did, and the moment I had that nervous breakdown and was diagnosed and what I did to overcome all that stuff. So I have that out. And then I actually made a self-care box out of it. So it's called the Quietest Kept Self-Care Box. And what's in it is my book. And then you get a guided journal, of course, because I found that some people who were reading the book were triggered. So I was like, okay, that is not what I wanted to do. So I threw in a guided journal with it to help them to process. And you're going to get a pen to write, because I don't ever give a journal without a pen, because that don't make sense. And that's just leaving you with an excuse to not journal.
But you're right. You're right. I mean, it seems silly, and I'm sitting here laughing, but that's so true. I'm glad that you do that, because it is. We look for any excuse. So it could be,
exactly.
I don't have a pen. You're right. Okay.
You gave me a journal, but I don't have a pen. You lying, because I give pens every time. And then you're going to get a lavender vanilla scented candle, which smells awesome. I love it. It was specially made for the box, and a bookmark to keep your place so you don't be bending the pages, and some tissue because you're going to be crying. And what else is in there? It's a lot of stuff in there, and I love it. I'm so excited about it.
I didn't know you did that. So going back to the book, because that wasn't in your bio. So now, as a PR person, I'm going to tell you, go back and put that in your bio.
I absolutely will. Thank you.
Because that's a good point, right? That's good. That's a good branding point for you. But where can we go find your book?
Go to my website, ShawntiRefuge.com.
Okay.
You will find everything from, I have free resources and I have paid resources. So, I have self-paced courses that I just came out with. So I have one called Falling for My Damn Self, and I have ebooks. One of them, I love it. It's called Reclaiming Your Peace. And I'm also hosting a guided journaling workshop. So if you are in the Houston, Texas area, it's called New Year Better Me. And that's going to be in January 2025. So if you, go and subscribe to my newsletter, you will be all informed, and you have no excuse to not start your healing journey, because I'm going to bug the mess out of you for you to start it.
So now I know why one of my emails that we exchanged, you put in there, it seems like you're reclaiming your peace. Thank you for that.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So sometimes I think about this. I know we don't want to look in the, what is it? What is it? It's at the rear view mirror, whatever. But anyhow, if you could go back though, like what advice would you give to yourself?
It depends on how far back I go. Now, let me go back.
Go so far, we don't need to go back to 14 and 16 where,
okay. Baby, if I could, I would go back and spike her behind, not abuse her, but like, look, girl. But no, if I could go back, I would say to myself that when I was at my lowest point, that I'm stronger than I think, and the pain won't last forever, and to take it one step at a time and trust that the journey will lead to a better place. And ta-da, it has.
Right. Trust the journey. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to drop another little wisdom or ism, whatever people call it. My mom died, and her neighbor, before she died, I was all stressed out because just trying to take care of her. She had Alzheimer's, and she told me, let go of the control you never had.
That part.
I was like, what? Can you repeat that? She was like, let go of the control you never had. She said, what's the way? She gave me all these different, life examples. Just some of it was funny, but I got what she was saying. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Exactly.
What's the worst that's going to happen? So,
that's it.
Any success stories you want to share? Somebody that you helped, and we don't have to get into any personal information about the person or situation, but anything that you're, mostly proud of, somebody you were able to help with your program?
Absolutely. I have one that stands out, one client that, she came to me, and initially she said, she followed me, and she, was, listening and, reading my posts. And then she had to unfollow me. And she said she unfollowed me because she wasn't ready for what I was saying. But then she came back and became my client. And she told me that my guided journaling prompts helped her to confront her past trauma and find the closure that she didn't think was possible. And, hearing her describe how she finally felt light was very unforgettable, because that's my goal. When you come to me, I want you to feel lighter and better than you had before you came to me. And if you don't feel that way, then I haven't done my job.
Yeah. That's amazing. And it's where she said she had to unfollow you. Like she really wasn't thinking,
Yeah, she wasn't trying to hear me.
She wants your post to come up in her feed. She was
Exactly.
like, isn't that something? Wow. But now I'm glad that she came back. That's all I can say.
I'm very glad, because she is a totally different person.
That she came
in a good
back.
way.
Well, I have enjoyed this. I'm sitting here. I mean, I can't imagine anyone not being able to walk away from something, whether, from your website, reading your ebook, or doing a class, because I have just in these few minutes that we've been talking. And so it's a blessing for me to be able to connect with you. I love your posts. I read your posts. I comment on them too. But let's do some quick fire questions. I set some out for you just for some fun. Describe your journaling style in 3 words.
Raw, reflective, and transformative.
I would agree with that. And you go because you put it out there. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, or motto? And I say one because it may not be a quote. It could be a mantra, motto that, you had, it's a favorite of yours.
Yes. Free yourself.
Hey. And why is that?
Because it's simple and it's powerful.
Okay.
Free yourself. From whatever it is that you are feeling like you are, confined in, free yourself. It don't matter what it is, it could be relationship, job, yourself. Sometimes we keep ourselves, caged up for whatever reason. Free yourself.
And when you do sit down to journal, is it coffee, tea, or something else?
I hate coffee, so it's tea, and it's usually chamomile. I don't even like the smell of coffee. Can't stand it.
Well, I can't have chamomile tea. I'm allergic.
Bless your heart, I will have more for you on your behalf.
No, I am allergic. You know how you go and get those allergy tests and they stick, right? Because again, I hate to put race in there, but not just mental health, but sometimes your medical health too. That in that culture, we don't do all those things. And so I was sick all the time. And some of it is because I'm allergic to the environment. Didn't even know it, and so I can't have that. And I would love, because it is relaxing and, but I just can't have any. So I know you've got your website. If you want to just say again how people can, people listening to this podcast can connect with you, if you want to throw some things out there, or is everything just on your website?
Absolutely. Now I'm going to say it. You can connect with me on my website, ShawntiRefuge.com, or you can follow me on social media. I'm at Shawnti Refuge Journals on everything. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube, LinkedIn. I'm not hard to find.
I want to thank you for being a guest here and being so open and sharing your story, because I know it's going to help somebody else. And I always love it when people can take their trauma and pain, turn it around, but then go and help other people. I'm glad, because one of the first things you said was, it wasn't a thought process for you to make it into a business. You were trying to help yourself. Because you did help yourself, you are now helping other people. And that's amazing.
Yep, it's not about me anymore. It's about me helping others.
I love that. Thank you for coming on. And thank everybody for listening. My name is Ilene Carroll, and you've been listening to Unseen and Unstoppable.